Hello, and welcome to a dedicated review, which simply means reviewing Ben's new favourite book. So, for the last probably year and a half, I've received uh, from mild to severe instruction to read ML Wang's work. That trails from Grace's slight prodding to Angela from Literature Science Alliance actually choosing the book to be one that I would read, and I didn't. Uh, because I have no respect for anyone, apparently. When I was looking through NetGalley one day and I saw Blood Over Brighthaven on there, I was like, I'm going to request that. Because it was shorter. That was the big win over Sword of Kaigen. It's like, this is 400 pages as opposed to 700. But also, I at the time had seen so many positive reviews of Blood Over Brighthaven because it got released self-published and then got snapped up for traditional publishing rights. So when I was actually interested, it was at that period of the kind of copies were running out fast, and I wasn't willing to kind of commit to it because I was still at university. I didn't have time to read it really, and then I also was trying to not buy many new books because I didn't want to have to then take them with me to Canada. So I waited, and then NetGalley one day spat out Blood Over Brighthaven, and evidently I loved it enough that I bought the physical copy. Essentially, Siona is the main character, and she is someone who is trying to become the first female high magic user, like high mage, in this society. It is a kind of utopian visage of a society that has a protective dome that keeps out this blight, this vicious attacking force that rips people apart from the inside out and pulls their skin off their bodies and all kinds of horrific imagery. And so we follow essentially a kind of school-based beginning of her taking an exam, that kind of thing. All these wonderful fantasy tropes that we love to see. That's kind of the central plot. Is that happening, and then things occur that open her eyes to wider society. But to backtrack it, I was immediately engrossed by the book in the most horrific way in chapter one. Because chapter one, when you read the synopsis and everything, you read about Siona, you read about this person, and then suddenly you start the book and you're reading it from a different perspective. You're reading it from the perspective of a man outside of this city, and he is with his family and they're trying to make this last journey, this journey across from where they're from, the land they live in, into the protective barrier that protects from the blight. And it is this horrid description of this last journey, essentially a migrant's crossing. And it was one of the most emotional openings to a book I've ever read, because it's just horrendously describing the loss and the numbness and the overwhelming need to go on and all these things in such an effective manner, and so clearly drawing from real life scenarios of migrant crossings. In terms of, in the UK, you've got like traveling from over the channel and everything, and what the Tories lovingly referred to as the small boat crisis. But that immediately after that first chapter, I was like, this has the potential now to be a truly special read, in terms of if it delivers emotion and social commentary on that level using a fantasy backdrop, then we are in for a winner. And it's fair to say the book continues to be that winner, because in a very small page count, only 400 pages, Wang delivers such a strong societal critique of everything. And I know I've seen reviews from people kind of being like the social commentary's too on the nose and it's too obvious, etc. It's like, sometimes that's just what I want to read, you know? Like, I understand that we all appreciate nuance sometimes, and this book is incredibly nuanced. The thing is that it's incredibly nuanced in one fucking direction, and that direction essentially deconstructing a patriarchal and racist society. And evidently, I think a lot of people, when they read that and they think it's too on the nose, they're not quite on board with the whole visage. Where it's like, for me, that if the book is doing that, then that is exactly what I want to read, and I was there for it. Sometimes I don't want to think about what the author means by something. Sometimes I just want to read it, and the author's fantastic view and perception of reality is put into this, and they just nail it. So, the strongest thing I'll say about this book is that it handles intersectionality perfectly, because this follows people who are at different crossroads, different intersections. Yes, and so you've got Siona, this person who is trying to become the first female High Mage, and she has to deal with the prejudices and everything that's put on her because of the fact that she's a woman. And at the same time, you're following a male migrant, and you then have this polarity of what he is suffering as a migrant and the judgment that she can then put on him, and the kind of the balancing of power, because she has power over him by virtue of societal standing, that she is from this country, whereas his race is viewed as kind of this savage, stupid race. And at the same time, he has power over her physically, and also this kind of and from a gender perspective. So there's an interplay with all of these things constantly going on, where you are not following good characters. Siona is an incredibly prejudiced character, and the book does not stray from that. It doesn't it doesn't quick time someone from being entrenched in their society's views and prejudices into this enlightened person who understands now what the real world is like. And instead, you follow this person who learns truths and is incredibly unwilling to accept them. And not from a sense of doubt, it's more from a sense of fear, and she translates that fear so well. That fear that actually you're not the person you thought you were. You're not doing what you thought you were. You're not part of the people you thought you were. And as a result, what does that mean about you? And the fear of how to change that or what to do. And I thought that journey as a central viewpoint of the growing relationship and rapport between those two characters completely works by virtue of the fact that Wang does not allow it to resolve too quickly. For large quantities of this book, almost all of it, they are growing to understand and learn about each other, but also are still very frictious. Is that a word?
I'm gonna say no.
It doesn't sound it, does it? But you know what I mean by saying frictious. They are constantly at odds by virtue of the fact of either or both not wanting to accept the other's viewpoint. And I think that's such a wonderful way of structuring a story. To me, I wanted to avoid comparisons as much as possible, in the sense of that the book that feels closest to this, to me, is Babel. But at the same time, the last thing I want is this idea of like, well, he just chose the other fantasy that's by an Asian author and that kind of thing. Instead, there are a lot of crossovers here. You've got a kind of educationally based magic system to do with exploitation of colonialism, exploitation of racism, exploitation of gender, etc. All of these things are explored. But I will say, I think Emma Wang does a better job than R.F. Kuang, which will probably be quite an inflammatory statement. But I think Emma Wang does more with intersectionality and nuance than R.F. Kuang does. And maybe having Babel as a predecessor for Blood Over Brighthaven to kind of stand on the shoulders of allows it to reach greater heights. I don't know, but I don't know whether Blood Over Brighthaven could exist in quite the same way without Babel already being there. I just think Blood Over Brighthaven is a masterpiece in terms of what it wants to do. Now, if that's not what you want, then the book's not going to be a masterpiece for you. But I think just the strength of image, the strength of themes, the strength of language. The writing is delectable, and because she's describing such horrific things, it just provides such a melancholic feel, and but at the same time, it's such a good mix because you've got this melancholic feel, but we're also following a character who is so impassioned and so filled with this desire to learn and this feeling of satisfaction when they complete something that it becomes at odds again. There's a big polar difference between that feeling of dread and also this overwhelming excitement for that character in achieving something, and those two blend together also to provide this amazing thematic journey. I think Emma Wang, genuinely masterpiece. This is the best 2025 release I've read so far.
2024.
This is exactly. This is the best 2024 release I've read so far. Thank you. So Wind in Truth has got a lot to step up to because this does a hell of a good job. For about half the book, there was nothing that surprised me in the sense of plot developments and everything. Everything that happened, I was like, yeah, this makes sense. This seems right, etc. And then there was a big kind of reveal / twist, and I was like, oh shit, because you get this feeling that there's something, but I just didn't put together what it was, and so I was taken by the blind side by it, and so I think there's a good mix of tropes and subversion of those tropes that works well with strong themes, really strong characters, a very moral central questioning, and yeah, if you like that kind of vibe, then I think the book's for you. I'm done. Buy it, read it. I would heavily encourage it. Of course, if you wait until paperback because hardbacks are extremely expensive. But if you did enjoy, please do like, please do subscribe. Emma Wang has done it again apparently, even though I have not read the first one to know whether she did it the first time. And as always, have a nice rest of your day. Oh, it's just black underneath. I was looking underneath to see if it was a different colour. Here's my thumbnail picture. You ready? Or this one.
Cute.
Or this one.
Maybe not.
Okay, I'm done.